So, all right, good afternoon and welcome everyone to the City Council Ward 1 Forum. My name is Joe Riedel and I serve as the chair of the Shawnee Chamber of Commerce Legislative Committee, and it is my honor to moderate today's forum. The Johnson County Public Policy Council, comprised of the 10 chambers of commerce serving Johnson County, developed today's questions focusing on business and community issues. We will begin candidate speaking order alphabetically and rotate throughout the forum. We will start with brief 3-minute opening statements by each candidate, followed by our Q&A, where candidates will have 1.5 minutes to answer the question, and end with 2 minutes for each candidate for closing statements. Due to time constraints, there will be no follow-up questions, formal rebuttal time, or audience participation. So, beginning with introductions, now I'd like to ask the candidates to introduce themselves, give a brief background on yourself, organizations you've been involved with, and why you feel you're qualified to serve on the Shawnee City Council. Starting with candidate 1, Tammy Thomas.
All right. I'm Tammy Thomas, and I have resided in Shawnee for 28 years. I've built 2 homes in Shawnee and have really anchored myself here. My husband, who was born and raised in this area, especially in Shawnee since the mid-1960s, his family has been very active in building and developing in this part of our state, as well as Johnson County beyond Shawnee. I have 3 children that have lived in Shawnee and have gone all the way through the Soto school district, starting at kindergarten. When my kids were really small, I volunteered for the city of Shawnee Shark Swim and Dive Team. My daughter was young enough to go over to the pool at the old Shawnee town that was still there, and it was a pretty competitive team. And then we eventually got old enough to go up to the big pool, and we spent many, many years there for swimming and diving. That's a little background from my time in Shawnee. My career, I have an education in nuclear medicine, and when I was, I was just a few years into my career, and my husband took a job in Texas, and so we moved there for 6 years. While there, I led a nuclear medicine department at Presbyterian Hospital of Plano. I also led a outpatient imaging center nuclear medicine department as well while there. When we had the opportunity to come home, my husband had an opportunity with Hallmark Cards, and we elected for me to stay home. And so that's what I did. We made financial adjustments, and I stayed home to be able to raise my children. I felt as though I could jumpstart a career, but I could never re-raise my children. While being a stay-at-home mom and working harder than I've ever worked, I also served on the USD 232 Board of Education. I've worked as a statewide liaison for the Department for Children and Families, where I would work with long-term care facilities and administrators to work with DCF on gaining approval for long-term care stays. That was a really hot mess in the state of Kansas at the time, and that was eventually turned over to KDADS. And then I became a regional director for DCF for 6 years. And I had headed up in the Kansas City region child welfare, adult protection, economic and employment services, and vocational rehabilitation. So I have a very clear understanding of families. I have an understanding of what the challenges can be. The thing I'm most proud of is the gift that God gave me in my husband and my children. There is nothing I value greater than them. I'm proud of them. I love them. I know that they have their heart and their arms with me at all times. And I've also been given the gift of a granddaughter this past, was 22, so she's 1.5 years old. So anchored in Shawnee, been here for a long time. I understand the changes that have gone on. And so it's a pleasure to serve.
All right, thank you, Ms. Thomas. And our next candidate, Ms. Sierra Whitted.
Hi. All right, I'm Sierra Whitted. I'm a mom, a wife. I work in a lung cancer diagnostics lab, and I am a proud Shawnee resident. When looking for a home, we did not take that lightly. I started saving for this down payment when I was in high school, if you want to talk about fiscal responsibility. So we were very serious about finding the right place. And the right place to me would have a very active community, great schools, and wonderful neighbors. Stunning parks and an active downtown would be a nice bonus, And luckily, we found all of that here in Shawnee. We fell in love with it and have been active participants throughout Shawnee since moving here. So many moonlight markets. I think a lot of my phone is my son Rowan running through the fire hydrant this year. I am running because I see what our city was, the reasons that we moved here, the reasons that we fell in love with Shawnee. And then I see the path that it's currently on, the future that it's leading to. To me, that is not a path for long-term success at this time. Much of the current council has abandoned the Achieve Shawnee plan, crafted by citizens and businesses input. A plan that initially had full support. We have become stagnant at a time when we could be thriving, especially with opportunities like the Panasonic plant and revitalizing downtown. While we still feel like a small town, which is wonderful, a lot of us adore it, we have 70,000 people. And our area has a wide variety of needs. I want a Shawnee that works for everyone. I want solid infrastructure so residents know they are safe and supported. So kids like my own can walk safely to school on a sidewalk instead of the road. So that people have quality homes and so that it stays a place that attracts valuable businesses. Another focus of mine is fiscal responsibility. By diversifying our income, the burden does not lie so heavily on homeowners. And we can do this by thoughtfully bringing in new businesses and developments to receive new forms of revenue while still maintaining our hometown character and protecting our green spaces. We must also make sure we keep our AAA accreditation to ensure more funds are going back into Shawnee instead of going towards interest. It's also very important to me to continue to strengthen the community that I have fallen in love with by continuing to provide our high quality services and amenities to every citizen, which adds to our hometown charm. I want Shawnee to thrive, and I'm prepared to work with citizens, our businesses, our city staff, our chamber, to make that a reality, and I hope to earn your vote on November 7th.
Okay, thank you. Thank you both for your introductions. With that, we will move into the moderated question and answer section, and once again, you will each have 1.5 minutes to respond to the questions. Staying with you, Ms. Whitted, as a candidate, what are your top 3 policy issues?
My top 3 policy issues, sort of mentioned in my opening there, are infrastructure, fiscal responsibility, and our community. I want to make sure that projects like finishing our roads, our sidewalks, bike lanes, storm repair, that they are all done timely and correctly so that our citizens are safe. Any development that's done, I want to make sure that we are keeping in line or at least recognizing that there is an Achieve Shawnee plan that was created by input from our citizens, and that staff from first responders to city staff are fully funded so that our citizens are safe. For fiscal responsibility, I want to make sure that we are bringing in businesses and making that a focus to alleviate that tax burden on homeowners and make sure that we continue to keep our AAA bond rating. For our community, I want to keep Shawnee a welcoming and supportive community for all. So by maintaining our infrastructure and fiscal responsibility, we can keep Shawnee a well-supported citizen to attract those new businesses and residents to keep Shawnee thriving. And also make sure that we are retaining our knowledgeable staff who provide the numerous high-quality services and amenities to Shawnee while protecting our history.
All right, thank you. Ms. Thomas, any question?
Thank you. I would have to say that my 3 top priorities are first responders. If you don't have a safe city, you don't have a city. And we've seen that in our current world that we live in. Public works, you have to have streets, you have to have curbs, you have to have sidewalks. Now, we have people living in houses now for 72 years. There's a woman that's consistently at our Shawnee City Council meetings. She has lived in Shawnee 72 years in the same house, and she still does not have sidewalks or gutters in her neighborhood. She's paid taxes for 72 years. Look at all the people that have come and gone. And it's, you know, all of the councils that have been, the resonating sound of all of those things come to me. And so our public works department must be well funded and accommodated with appropriate machinery to get their job done. The other thing for me is taxes. Johnson County has thrown us a real curveball with the extremely high taxes that we have been experiencing, these increased steady events that have occurred at locations beyond and levels of government beyond our input and our purview. And so that is why this council is taking deliberate steps to take the city's portion of those taxes and lower them by lowering the mill levy. Is it lowering the overall taxes? No, they've done that. They have done it to a point where your taxes will go up. However, we are lowering the city's portion in a way that is responsible.
Okay, thank you. And staying with you here, Ms. Thomas.
Yeah.
What are your views on the value Shawnee businesses receive for their local tax dollars, and what changes, if any, would you propose to the city budget?
The values for Shawnee businesses receiving through their tax dollars, and I went out and asked a lot of people about that, business owners. I wanted to know what they thought, what's your value? And the consistent word was public works and keeping the streets clear. You know, most of them say, well, it's really not that different than when I was in Lenexa, except for my roads are clear when it snows. And I think that's a huge talking point for people, because some businesses, you go over to Merriam and cities have to shut down or they can't get to work or things such as that. So that's what I would have to say. And as far as any budget recommendations, we value businesses, but I also value the freedom of business owners to come in and build their business. I'm not one that, it was an example of this past Monday night. I'm not a fan of the seed grants going to folks that decide to build a business in Shawnee, because a lot of people build businesses in Shawnee and they don't get a grant or a seed grant. And then you see the same people getting those grants. So somewhere we have to shore that up and really make a strong definition of what we're going to do with seed grants and how it relates to people who are coming to build a business here.
Whitted?
All right. I see the city and businesses having a very symbiotic relationship. Businesses, they bring in the services that we need, they provide jobs, they help alleviate the tax burden, as mentioned before, but the city also has to help by maintaining those roads, trackways, utilities. The city also does a lot for businesses in terms of a very knowledgeable staff to help with permits, planning, I do believe that there is a use for seed funds. Yes, anyone can come in and that can be great, but it can also be how we end up with a lot of car washes. So it's nice to be able to use those seed funds to attract the high quality businesses that we really want. So I would like to be a part of the city council so that I can be a part of this symbiotic relationship. And I do want to be able to hear from more residents and businesses about what they want and help to improve Shawnee.
Okay, all right, thank you. And moving on to the next question, staying with you, Sierra. The attraction of outside dollars in the form of tourism is a great way to stimulate the local economy. If you were elected, how would you work to attract new visitors to Shawnee?
Okay. As I mentioned before, we were already attracted to Shawnee. There is a lot of community events, parks, the moonlight markets, These are fantastic, and I think we need to keep them up. But we also need to make sure that we are adapting creatively and functionally to expand the demographics that we attract. We have a ton of family-friendly activities. Again, we need to maintain those, but start thinking about other options, like events that might attract young professionals, especially into roles that we'll need to fill for employment. There's also an opportunity to create multi-day events. I mean, we have a lot of really unique features. Shawneetown 1929, Valley of Champions, Riverfront Park. Those are all ripe for businesses to be able to either come in, help support, lots of options to attract other unique opportunities. In addition to that, though, we need to make sure that we are preparing for that influx of tourism. We need to make sure our roads are up to par, that there's easy transportation, and that our growth includes hotels and lodging.
Okay, thank you. Tammy?
Yeah, I think we would need to truly identify what we already have, and are we utilizing it to its greatest extent. You have Old Shawneetown, and people get off of 435 and Johnson Drive and they look at the sign. Of course, that's not Shawnee's duty to change the sign, but 4, 5, 6 years it's been there, and people think that's an address. I had someone call me that was going to Old Shawneetown for an event, and they said, well, where is it? And so our signage, just simple signage, is very, very poor. Shawneetown needs to be open to the people. the city council has approved and the city has done significant investment in Old Shawnee Town. And are we getting our money's worth for that investment? Look at our Valley of Champions. That's in my back door. What Johnson County did with the investment on those ball fields is really significant. If you looked at them before and if you looked at them now, it is unbelievable how much better they are. The lighting is LED. It's much lower. Extremely well done. We have got to act on that. Riverfront Park, yes, there's this idea of a riverfront park, but it doesn't exist. So if we can actually capitalize on things that are here, are tangible, and bring them up to speed to where they're actually an attraction. Downtown is great. We've invested a heck of a lot of money in downtown, but we have businesses outside of downtown that can really benefit from some of these things if we just put our mind to it and our attention to it.
Okay, thank you. Next question, staying with you, Ms. Thomas. With the announcement of the Panasonic plant in neighboring DeSoto, how do you see Shawnee taking advantage of the ripple effect it will have on surrounding communities?
That question was great, and I gave it a lot of thought. With my background, having been in the healthcare field and having on-site childcare was huge for me. It was stabilizing for our family. And when you think of Panasonic and all of the people that will be coming to this part of our state and to the DeSoto School District, Eudora School District, how can we solicit business that will consider on-site childcare? Because if you have on-site childcare, you have a more stable workforce. You have parents that are employed. That means they're paying their rent or they're paying their house payment. So we need to identify these areas that aren't just fluffy, but they're truly aimed at benefiting the citizens of Shawnee. And I think soliciting that type of business, and whatever business it is, how do they do it? It's done in other places. Call them, find out what's your game plan there. How do you achieve this? And let's see if we can do that in Shawnee. And you want to talk about people who want to come here, not just live here for a while, but make this their home, make this an employment place that they retire from. You bring in on-site childcare.
Okay, thank you. Candidate Whitted?
All right. So I'm also very excited about the opportunities that the Panasonic plant can bring. What I see it bringing the most is people. And in order to make sure that these people have a place to live, if they want to live here, we need to make sure we have housing. Right now, the rental occupancy rate is 90% and permits are down because developers might not be as attracted to Shawnee right now as other times. So we have an opportunity to make sure that we are preparing homes, attainable housing, to welcome this new workforce. We also need to make sure that we are increasing connectivity to schools, businesses, services, making it a more connected area to support that growth and so that families can travel safely. We also have very good relationships with neighboring cities that we can cooperate with to make sure that the schools can support this influx of students. All in all, yeah, I think this is a good opportunity for Shawnee to review the Achieve Shawnee plan and find where we can build that housing to best suit this income workforce.
Okay. Thank you. All right, next question, staying with you, Ms. Whitted. What do you see as the growth trajectory of the K7 corridor? What types of development do you expect to see in this area?
Okay, well that kind of ties in nicely. So again, the Achieve Shawnee plan, if you haven't looked at it, it lays out some wonderful areas for development and some ideas to really add some variety to Shawnee. It has different mixed housing, businesses, community commercial, which I'll admit I have to look up, but it looked adorable, and I would like to shop at places like that. Larger businesses, and even industrial areas, all spread out, all still making sure we maintain our green spaces that everyone loves. So I would hope that we can continue to work with the chamber, to work with planning, to make sure that we can attract the right types of businesses and developments to align with that Achieve Shawnee plan. And if we can make the most of that, we're going to be providing the best variety of services to our people. Not to mention the higher density housing that we will eventually need to make sure that we are providing the workforce Shawnee needs as it grows.
Okay, thank you. Same question, Mr. Thomas?
I think what's missing here is the input from the citizens themselves. When we talk about higher density housing, we just had this on Monday night, where a really, really good idea was brought forth. But in that idea, you had 4 variances or deviations from the standard that were granted. Those could have been addressed. And then you had yards that were 10 feet deep or extremely short, butting right up to a mature home with a backyard. I didn't support that plan, not because I didn't like it, but it could have been brought into the requirements or the ordinances that exist with regard to distances. 20 feet? No, these are 15 feet. They could have taken their plan and taken off one building and made a correction and taken that step. Because when you look at the people that are there that night and having this housing, I understand what they're talking about. They're not saying don't develop. They're just saying, please, let's have some balance here of what a 30-foot backyard looks like versus a 10-foot backyard. So I think we need to not only think about the housing, but we have to think about the right housing. And remember, if we deviate from the ordinances, you have set a precedent that you're going to have to explain as you move forward. And I think that has been a little bit of a hiccup for us. Thank you.
Okay. Moving over geographically a little here, the city has experienced exciting growth in downtown Shawnee recently. What do you see as the next opportunities to keep this area growing and vibrant? It's still
I think it's done a great job. It had a heck of a time getting there, but it is rolling, and you do see businesses in the downtown Shawnee area. The project that we saw this past Monday night for a juicery and some other smaller business type things, I think was a good idea. I just would like business to come in and build their business and government stay out of the financial part. I feel like having a more diverse business population downtown, we have multiple bars. I do hear quite a bit of comments about that. People don't want to go down there with their kids because of all the bars. Can't they come up with something else? And so I think this is an area that is successful. It's being successful, but we need to broaden our arms around the demographic of folks that would love to come down to downtown Shawnee, but just due to what is present, they don't.
Okay. Ms. Whitted, same question. Downtown.
Yeah. So downtown, I agree. I think it does need some more variety right now. We have a lot of very interesting storefronts, and it would be nice to see more options for dining, shopping, experiences, and even art. Being able to have some sort of interaction with the downtown would be exciting. Luckily, with our AAA accreditation and a great Chamber of Commerce, I know we can bring in a lot of these more high-quality businesses. I do believe that we should make sure we're keeping it walkable and easily accessible. If people are walking, they are spending more time, they are spending more money, and that is more income for Shawnee, which I would like to see. We could also make use of it as a federal opportunity zone. We can use those funds to improve the infrastructure while maintaining the neighborhoods. And that helps us make sure that that area stays functional and well preserved and keeping our hometown feel. But mostly it comes down to, I'd like to hear from the residents what they would like to see and what we can make happen.
Okay. Thank you. Question number 7. A top issue for all employers, public or private, is the need for a qualified workforce. What role do you see the City of Shawnee playing in attracting qualified workers and or addressing some of the barriers for employees such as childcare and attainable housing? Same with you.
Yeah, that's definitely a big issue. It's tough on a lot of people right now. As mentioned before, as part of the items to attract people into Shawnee, maybe having more events for a younger workforce, or young professionals, making sure we're focusing on that to draw them in, I think is a good place to start. Housing has kind of been addressed in some of the previous questions. I do believe we are going to need more attainable housing. The Achieve Shawnee plan has places laid out or assigned for that, and it's going to have to be a priority if we want to keep our workforce up. For childcare, there's also a lot of different avenues we could take for that. We could work with our chamber to attract more daycares into the area. We could issue special use permits for well-regulated in-home daycares. We can also work between the city, current daycare owners, other cities, see what they do to address the problem, and see what we can do to improve our process for bringing in quality childcare. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Ms. Thomas, any questions?
Yeah, I think I touched on it earlier, and we don't have it here in Shawnee, is our employers who are willing to have and work through the process of attaining on-site childcare. It is a huge benefit. And some would say, well, that's not even possible, but it is possible. It may take work, it may take an investment of time, but I would love to see intentional work go towards that, because when you talk about employees, qualified employees, you know, a lot of people needing childcare are single parents. And so if you're depending on an in-home childcare situation, you may not have the opportunity to take that child when your child is running a temperature of 100. But if you have some on-site childcare, you can have that delineation. It is possible, and we just seem to not turn our heads towards it. But when you think of a child being cared for, you have to care for the parent. You have to provide that environment. So we need to be intentional about what we're offering, not just the daycare here or there or more special use permits. We need to think of something that's significant, that's going to keep people here and at work, and that means they're making money, that means they're making their rent time on time, and that, or mortgage payments. And families overall, the familial health stays intact, the family stays intact, which not doing that can lead to a barrage of issues as well.
Okay, thank you. Moving on here, and we're going to stay with you, Ms. Thomas. What would you say is the Shawnee community's competitive advantages, or the advantages are as it relates to a location of a business?
I think that's pretty cut and dry. I mean, you got 435, you've got K7, and then just not too far up the highway, up Shawnee Mission Parkway or Johnson Drive, you have I-35. So we're in a good crossroads area and have access to that. We're also very near K10, which can take you out west to wherever to Soto, where the Panasonic plant will be, which you will have a significant amount of housing. You'll have trucking companies, delivery companies, expansions, and that type of thing. So I don't think that's really something to labor over. Our location is excellent.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I do think we are very advantageously located, 20 minutes from everywhere, close to a metro, but we still have our lovely hometown feel. Easy highway access, places to grow, and there are long-term plans for more development, including industrial, which is a very profitable market right now. And we do have the ability to make use of our geography. We've protected a lot of green spaces. Those are a huge hit in the area. And we have opportunities to expand on places like Riverfront Park. A difference from other cities, though, with our locations, that we do have a very strong Chamber of Commerce, and we have opportunities to work with other cities to gain more education that not every place is as lucky to have as we do in Johnson County. Yeah, it's a great area.
All right, thank you. Moving into the next question, and we'll stay with you, Ms. Whitted. What role, if any, do you believe the city should play in economic development to bring jobs and capital investment to the community?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think there is somewhat of a symbiotic relationship. Shawnee has very good relationships with Chamber of Commerce, with our Planning Commission for business development, and I do think we should be taking full advantage of that relationship. There's professionals that create these possibilities to attract the beneficial businesses to the area, and I want to make sure that we are investing wisely in our future growth. Seed funds are a good way to make sure we are strategically attracting those businesses, and I would like to make sure that our residents are getting the communities that they want using those funds.
Thank you. Ms. Thomas?
I think Heartland Park is a great example of a huge win by our chamber and being so diligent in working towards that and staying focused on that. Take some time and go down there and look around. you wouldn't believe the businesses that are right here, and I never even realized. But thanks to the chamber, they'll have some breakfast and things like that that we get to go out and see them. But they've done a really, really good job in developing that part of our city. I think the chamber is focused on areas such as the Valley of Champions. I'm not sure of development at the Riverfront Park at this time, when we're thinking still more about downtown Shawnee. I hope to see very soon there kind of let downtown Shawnee not be such a hot focus, and start focusing out in areas that we have other development that is sitting there and ripe, and Valley of Champions is one of them. Riverfront Park, I think, is a great idea, but I don't know that there's really anything moving on that as of yet that I've seen that is productive. And so I feel like that the chamber's done a great job in the economic development side, and I think they've taken a good lead on that.
Thank you. And on to the final question of the Q&A, and then we'll move into closing statements here in a minute. But starting with you here, candidate Thomas, what do you believe most distinguishes you from your opponent in this race, making you best suited to serve?
Life experience. I've done a lot. I've had a lot in my careers with a broad brush of career. Nuclear medicine, healthcare, working for the state of Kansas in supporting families across our state, working with children across our state. Also, in my current role, I also reach across to Missouri and help the families and children in Missouri, because we know through Department for Children and Families, if families don't get what they need where they are, they're going to hop the state line and come on over. So for fiscal responsibility, that has been a huge turning point for me. I think also having raised 3 children to productive working adults has been tremendous in my delineation from my opponent. But all of those things are due to my age. You know, I'm at that age that I've done those things. So, and then I think another thing is the stability of my marriage with my husband of 36 years. And that's not been disrupted. We've had our difficulties, but it's that commitment. So all of those things that make me who I am, and my love of my church where I serve, I think I'm well suited and the best candidate to continue in this position.
Okay.
Right. I'd say one of the things that I excel at most is working well with others to accomplish difficult goals. And my long-term goal is to keep Shawnee citizens happy and secure. I know this means being fiscally responsible, open to development, and working with others respectfully. I'm willing to listen and work with professionals and respect our residents and staff, to trust their feedback, to provide to the community. I don't want the next generation to be left with any of the burdens from what I would have done. I see the long-term value in keeping our fiscal reserves so that our city can be funded in times of hardship. I want to make sure that if there is another recession, our police, firefighters, and staff are protected. I want to make sure that I work hard. Well, not make sure, I have been working on this campaign as I'm learning, but I do want to make sure that I continue to work hard to support our team of Shawnee and keep Shawnee a hometown with heart.
Okay, thank you. With that, we conclude our question and answer portion, and moving into closing statements by each candidate. As a reminder, for this, each candidate will have 2 minutes to wrap it up, and starting with candidate Whitted.
All right, so I've talked a lot tonight, but what it really comes down to is if you want me to represent you. Constantly questioning the knowledge of our city's experienced professionals and voting against development desired by Shawnee citizens per the Achieve Shawnee plan does not make a community strong. We must work together. I want to work with Shawnee citizens, staff, and the chamber to see us thrive and continue to earn our AAA accreditation. I want to rebuild our city's strong foundation on a basis of solid infrastructure, fiscal responsibility, and strengthening the community. I believe in the Achieve Shawnee plan, and I respect the voices of Shawnee that made it. As a representative, I'm here to work for you, to listen, to find solutions, and to make our community better, not just for today, but for years to come. I want my son to enjoy Shawnee as much as I enjoy it today. So let me know what you think, really. I have an email. So feel free to reach out. That's the kind of leader that I am. That's the kind of leader that Shawnee needs. And I hope I have earned your vote in November. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I know we talk a lot about our citizens and our reserves, that, we shouldn't touch those reserves. Well, guess what? If you're concerned about the citizens of Shawnee, many of them don't have a reserve. Right now in our society, delinquency on credit cards are higher than they were before COVID. People don't have this extra money to be taken from them. You meet someone at the door who's crying because she can't afford to go get her medicines because she doesn't have any money and she's on a fixed income. Those are real things in Shawnee, and we can sit back and look at glam, and we can look at really pretty renderings and things such as that, but that doesn't meet the needs of Shawnee. And so I feel like, for me, Shawnee, what Shawnee was before 1960s when myself and my husband became involved here, what Shawnee is today and what Shawnee is going to become is based on her citizens. It's not based on a staff. It's not based on councils. It's not based on commissions. It's not based on boards. It's based on the people that live here, the people who are footing the bill, the people who pay staff. And incidentally, as a council member, we get a paycheck twice a month of $300. That comes from somebody. And I want Shawnee to know that we are listening to the people that give every single day without a choice. It's taken from them in taxes. And they know that they're heard. I care. I've dedicated my career to caring for families and children and keeping them together, kids safe and families together. You can't have that when people are being overtaxed. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And that concludes our forum for Shawnee City Council Ward 1 on behalf of the Chamber. I definitely want to offer a sincere thank you to candidates Tammy Thomas and candidate Whitted for being here and your participation today. For more information about these candidates and videos of other candidate forums and advanced voting details, visit www.votejoco.com. That's VOTEJOCO.com. And please share this voter resource with your colleagues, friends, and family. And on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce, thank you for everybody else for taking advantage of this forum and being here today to learn about these candidates. So best luck to both of you on your campaigns, and
Thank you.
we're seeing you.